If you believe wide-leg pants are impossible to get wrong, this conversation may surprise you. Some of the most elegant women I've ever met have worn wide-leg trousers, and some of the oldest-looking outfits I've ever seen were built around that very same silhouette. The difference was never the price tag. It wasn't the brand. It wasn't even age. It was intention. As a designer, I've learned that clothing speaks long before we do. Every seam, every fold, every line of fabric quietly introduces us to the room before we have the chance to smile or say hello. Wide-leg pants are no exception. In fact, they are one of the most revealing garments in a woman's wardrobe. They don't hide proportion. They expose it. They don't create elegance. They amplify whatever is already there. That's why so many women over 60 are given the same advice. Just wear wide-leg pants, only to wonder why the reflection in the mirror still feels heavier, shorter, or somehow less refined than they imagined. Welcome to Evergrace Style, where we look beyond trends and into the quiet language of timeless design. Here, we don't chase fashion. We study why certain choices continue to look graceful, decade after decade. Today, I'll share 7 wide-leg pant mistakes that subtly add years without anyone realizing why. More importantly, I'll show you the small design decisions that create balance, movement, and quiet confidence. Because true elegance isn't found in a garment. It's found in the conversation between that garment and the woman wearing it. And once you learn to see that conversation, you'll never look at wide-leg pants the same way again. Fashion has a curious habit. The moment a silhouette becomes universally praised, people stop asking whether it truly belongs to them. That's exactly what happened with wide-leg pants. Somewhere along the way, they became known as the answer for almost every woman over 60. They're comfortable, they're forgiving, they're modern, and all of that can be true. But here's the question I wish more women would ask before bringing home another pair. Does this silhouette celebrate your body, or does it simply cover it? As a designer, I never begin with the garment. I begin with the woman who will bring that garment to life. Clothing should never compete with her presence. It should quietly support it. This sounds small, but it changes everything. When a silhouette is chosen only because it's fashionable, the eye no longer finds a clear destination. Instead of seeing graceful proportions, it sees a large, uninterrupted shape. The waist becomes less defined. The legs appear shorter. The natural rhythm of the body becomes harder to read. Ironically, a style chosen to look relaxed can begin to feel visually heavy. Imagine 2 women wearing nearly identical wide-leg trousers at a weekend lunch with friends. The fabric, color, and price are almost the same. Yet one woman appears effortlessly elegant, while the other seems overwhelmed by her outfit. The difference isn't the pants. The difference is that one pair works with her body's architecture, while the other asks her body to adapt to the garment. That's a mistake many fitting rooms quietly encourage. Mirrors often convince us that a garment is good enough because we're standing still. But clothing doesn't live in a fitting room. It lives in movement, conversation, and everyday life. Instead of asking, "Are wide-leg pants flattering?" try asking a more thoughtful question. Does this pair create balance between my shoulders, my waist, and the way I move? That single shift in thinking changes everything. Because timeless style has never been about finding the right trend. It's about finding the right relationship between your body and the clothes you choose to wear. And once you understand that relationship, you'll notice something almost every shopper overlooks. The waist isn't disappearing because of age. Sometimes, it's disappearing because the clothes stopped introducing it. Your waist doesn't disappear because of age. More often than not, it disappears because your clothes stop introducing it. That may sound like an unusual statement, but after decades of studying garments on real women, not mannequins, I've learned that the eye is constantly searching for structure. It isn't measuring your dress size, it isn't counting birthdays, it's simply looking for rhythm, proportion, and a place to rest. And this is where most women get it completely wrong. Many believe that a looser waist automatically creates a more flattering silhouette. Sometimes it does. But when the waistband, the rise, and the drape all blur together, the body begins to read as one continuous column instead of a beautifully balanced figure. This isn't about making your waist look smaller. It's about reminding the eye where the center of your body lives. Think of the human silhouette the way an architect thinks about a beautiful building. Every memorable structure has a sense of order. There is a beginning, there is a middle, there is an ending. Remove the middle, and even an extraordinary design starts to feel heavier than it truly is. Clothing follows the very same principle. Picture a woman getting dressed for a family celebration. She slips into a pair of flowing wide-leg trousers with a soft, oversized blouse hanging loosely over the waistband. The pieces are individually beautiful. The fabrics feel luxurious. Nothing looks obviously wrong, yet something feels unfinished. The blouse hides the visual center of her body. The trousers lose their purpose. Instead of seeing graceful proportions, the eye sees uninterrupted volume from shoulder to ankle. Now imagine a subtle adjustment. The blouse is gently tucked at the front, or perhaps it ends naturally, just above the waistband. A slim belt isn't added for decoration, but simply to create a quiet transition. Suddenly the outfit begins to breathe. The legs appear longer. The posture feels stronger. The entire silhouette becomes calmer, without looking tighter. That is the kind of refinement people notice without realizing why. Because elegance rarely announces itself. It reveals itself through proportion. The next time you try on wide-leg pants, don't begin by asking whether they're comfortable. Comfort matters, but sloppy comfort is not the same thing as effortless style. Instead, step back from the mirror and ask yourself one question. Can someone immediately understand the architecture of my silhouette? If the answer is yes, you're already much closer to timeless elegance. But even a beautifully balanced silhouette can lose its sophistication if the fabric itself refuses to cooperate. And that's exactly where we're going next. Every fabric enters a room before you do. Not because people notice the label, not because they know what it's made of, but because every fabric carries its own visual weight, its own rhythm, and its own personality. Long before someone admires your outfit, their eyes have already decided whether the fabric feels graceful, heavy, effortless, or tired. This isn't about fashion. This is about visual psychology. One of the biggest misconceptions about wide-leg pants is believing that silhouette alone creates elegance. It doesn't. Two pairs can share the exact same cut, yet tell completely different stories the moment they begin to move. As a designer, I pay just as much attention to movement as I do to shape. A garment is never truly finished until it walks across the room. Picture a pair of wide-leg trousers made from a thick, stiff fabric that barely responds to the body. Every step feels slightly rigid. The fabric pushes outward instead of flowing downward. Instead of creating length, it quietly creates bulk. The silhouette appears larger, even when the woman wearing it hasn't changed at all. Now compare that to a pair crafted from a refined crepe, a fluid wool blend, or a softly structured draping fabric. The trousers don't fight gravity. They work with it. They skim the body instead of surrounding it. They move with quiet confidence rather than demanding attention. Beautiful design is often nothing more than a graceful conversation with gravity. Now here's the part nobody talks about. Many women focus entirely on how a garment looks while standing in front of a mirror under bright fitting room lights. Designers do something different. We watch what happens after the first step, the second step, and the 10th. Does the fabric settle naturally? Does it swing with ease? Or does it hold unnecessary volume with every movement? Those answers matter far more than the size on the label. The next time you shop for wide-leg pants, don't just touch the fabric. Hold it by the waistband and let it fall naturally. Watch how it responds to gravity before it ever responds to your body. Because expensive style isn't always made from expensive fabric. It's often made from fabric that knows exactly when to move and when to stay quiet. And once the fabric begins working for you instead of against you, there's one final detail that can either complete the illusion of elegance or quietly destroy it in just a few inches. Designers have a quiet obsession. It's not always the jacket. It's not always the neckline. Sometimes, it's the last 4 inches of a pair of trousers. Most women never look there. Their attention goes to the waistband, the color, or whether the pants feel comfortable. But in the design studio, we know something that can completely change the way an outfit is perceived. The eye always finishes its journey at the hem. That final line, where fabric meets the shoe, quietly determines whether the silhouette feels intentional or unresolved. I've seen beautifully tailored wide-leg pants lose every ounce of sophistication because they ended in the wrong place. Not because they were too long or dramatically too short, but because they interrupted the flow of the body at exactly the wrong moment. And that's the kind of mistake people notice without knowing they noticed it. Imagine a woman walking into a dinner with friends. Her blouse is elegant. Her jewelry is understated. The fabric of her trousers moves beautifully. But every step causes the hem to bunch heavily over her shoes. Instead of creating length, the trousers begin to look tired. The graceful movement disappears beneath unnecessary folds. The eye stops at the fabric instead of continuing naturally toward the floor. Now imagine the very same outfit with a subtle adjustment. The hem gently skims the top of the shoe, allowing just enough movement to create a long, uninterrupted vertical line. Nothing dramatic has changed. Most people couldn't explain what feels different. They would simply say she looks polished. This sounds almost too simple. Yet it is one of the details luxury tailoring has respected for generations. Because refinement is rarely built from dramatic decisions. It's built from dozens of tiny ones that quietly support each other. Before you decide a pair of wide-leg pants doesn't suit you, try them on with the shoes you actually wear most often. Walk across the room, turn around, sit down. Watch how the hem behaves, instead of judging the outfit while standing perfectly still. Very often, the problem isn't the trousers, it's the conversation they're having with your shoes. And once that conversation feels effortless, another truth begins to reveal itself. The best outfit in the fitting room can become an ordinary outfit the moment you start walking. If there's one lesson every fashion student eventually learns, it's this. A mirror can be honest, but it can never tell the whole story. That's because clothing isn't designed for stillness. It's designed for life, for reaching across a table, for climbing a staircase, for greeting an old friend with a warm embrace, for walking into a room without thinking about what you're wearing. And this is where many beautiful outfits quietly fall apart. I've watched women smile confidently in front of a fitting room mirror, only to see that same outfit lose its elegance the moment they took 3 or 4 natural steps. Nothing about the garment changed. Only the movement did. As designers, we spend countless hours observing garments in motion because movement reveals what a mirror hides. Does the fabric twist unexpectedly? Does one leg collapse while the other holds its shape? Does the waistband stay balanced, or does it shift every time the body changes direction? Those small moments tell the truth. Imagine you're dressing for a weekend art exhibition. You leave home feeling polished and confident. But throughout the afternoon, you find yourself tugging at your waistband, smoothing the fabric over your hips, or glancing down every few minutes to check whether the trousers are sitting correctly. The outfit hasn't become uncomfortable. It has become distracting. And truly elegant clothing should never ask for your attention after you've put it on. The finest garments almost disappear from your awareness. They allow your posture, your conversation, and your personality to become the focus, instead of the clothes themselves. That is one of the quiet secrets behind women who always seem effortlessly stylish. They aren't constantly adjusting their outfits. They've chosen pieces that continue working long after they've stopped thinking about them. Before you decide whether a pair of wide-leg pants deserves a place in your wardrobe, give it a better test than the fitting room mirror. Walk, sit, turn, reach for something on a high shelf, climb a few steps if you can. Live in the garment for 2 minutes instead of simply looking at it for 20 seconds. Because elegance isn't measured by how clothing behaves in front of a mirror. It's measured by how confidently it follows you through real life. And once movement feels effortless, one final mistake remains, perhaps the most misunderstood of them all. It has nothing to do with fit, fabric, or length. It has everything to do with restraint. Luxury has a language. Surprisingly, it isn't spoken through logos. It isn't announced by price tags. And it certainly isn't measured by how many design details can fit onto one garment. True luxury is recognized by restraint. This is one of the first lessons I learned while studying beautifully made clothing. The most refined pieces rarely asked to be admired. They simply allowed the woman wearing them to become unforgettable. Wide-leg pants often lose that quiet elegance for one simple reason. They try too hard. A dramatic waistband, oversized patch pockets, heavy pleats, decorative buttons, bold stitching, extra zippers, wide belts, drawstrings, cargo-inspired details. Individually, none of these elements are wrong. Together, they begin competing for attention. And when every detail wants to be noticed, the woman slowly disappears behind the design. The finest garments understand something different. They know exactly what to leave out. Think about the women whose style stays with you years later. Chances are, you don't remember every item they wore. You remember the feeling they created. Calm, confidence, ease, presence. That isn't an accident. It's thoughtful editing. A designer spends just as much time removing unnecessary details as adding beautiful ones. Now imagine two women attending the same evening dinner. One wears wide-leg trousers filled with decorative seams, oversized pockets, metallic accents, and statement accessories layered together. Everything is fashionable. Everything is expensive. Yet your eyes don't know where to rest. The other woman wears beautifully tailored trousers with clean lines, a softly structured knit, simple earrings, and elegant shoes. Nothing competes. Every element quietly supports the next. Without saying a single word, the second outfit communicates confidence. Not trendy, not flashy, just unmistakably refined. Style after 60 isn't about proving that you still understand fashion. It's about showing that you understand yourself. When your clothing becomes quieter, something remarkable happens. People begin noticing you instead. Before adding one more interesting detail to an outfit, pause for a moment and ask yourself a question every designer eventually learns to ask. What could I remove without losing the beauty of this look? More often than not, the answer leads to a stronger outfit. Because elegance doesn't grow through accumulation. It grows through intention. And that brings us to the final lesson, one that has less to do with your wardrobe than with the way you see yourself every morning. I'd like to leave you with one final thought. It isn't really about wide-leg pants. It never was. It's about the quiet difference between seeing yourself and understanding how the world sees you. The mirror is a useful tool. Every designer relies on one. But here's something we learn very early in our careers. A mirror answers only one question. Does the garment fit? The world asks a completely different question. What does this woman communicate before she speaks? Those are not the same conversation. Your reflection is perfectly still. It never sees you stepping onto a sidewalk on a crisp morning. It never watches you laughing across a dinner table. It never notices the way sunlight catches the movement of your trousers as you walk through a doorway. Real life is where clothing earns its reputation. Let me confess something most designers never say out loud. I've seen technically perfect outfits that felt completely forgettable. And I've seen remarkably simple outfits that people remembered for years. The difference wasn't perfection. It was presence. Presence cannot be stitched into fabric. It appears when proportion, movement, simplicity, and confidence quietly agree with one another. Imagine getting dressed for an ordinary afternoon. You're meeting a friend for coffee, stopping by the bookstore, and picking up a few things on your way home. Nothing about the day feels special. Yet someone smiles and says, You always look so elegant. They probably won't mention your trousers. They won't comment on the fabric. They won't ask where you bought your shoes. What they're responding to is harmony. Your clothes aren't asking for attention. They're allowing your character to become visible. That is the highest purpose of good design. Before you decide whether your wide-leg pants deserve a place in your wardrobe, try one final exercise. Wear them for an entire day. Walk through natural light. Sit in different chairs. Watch your reflection in a store window instead of your bathroom mirror. Notice how the fabric behaves when you forget you're wearing it. Because that's the moment truth quietly appears. The most elegant women don't build wardrobes around trends. They build them around trust. Trust in proportion. Trust in restraint. Trust in knowing that timeless style has never been about wearing more beautiful clothes. It's about allowing beautiful clothes to reveal the woman who was already there all along. Perhaps the most meaningful lesson from today's conversation has very little to do with wide-leg pants. A beautiful wardrobe is never built by collecting the right garments. It's built by learning to recognize yourself. Fashion will continue changing, just as it always has. New silhouettes will arrive. New trends will promise to transform the way we look. And next year, many of those trends will quietly disappear. But proportion doesn't disappear. Grace doesn't disappear. Thoughtful design doesn't disappear. Those qualities remain beautiful, because they were never created by fashion in the first place. If there's one idea I'd love you to remember after today, it's this. Your clothes should never compete with your presence. They should simply give it a beautiful frame. The women whose style we admire most rarely own the loudest wardrobes. They understand balance, they appreciate restraint, and they know that confidence isn't something you wear. It's something your clothing quietly allows other people to notice. Thank you for spending this time with me here at Evergrace Style. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 7 mistakes surprised you the most? Or perhaps you've discovered another lesson about wide-leg pants that experience has taught you over the years. Share it in the comments. Your insight may help another woman see her wardrobe in an entirely new way. And if you enjoy thoughtful conversations about timeless style, elegant proportions, and dressing with quiet confidence after 60, I hope you'll subscribe and join us again. In our next video, we'll explore another subtle design choice that quietly changes how every outfit is perceived. Until then, take good care of yourself. And remember, the most timeless thing you'll ever wear is not confidence, it's intention.